Power comes in many forms, and being powerful doesn't always mean you know how to fight. It doesn't mean that your power lies in combat. And superheroes are no exception to this, and today we're talking about 10 of them. But for our first pick of the day, it's actually gonna be Wonder Woman. Now, before you jump on me in the comments, you should probably know that we are talking about the OG original JSA version of Wonder Woman. Shout out to Rodney Lindsay in the comments of part 1 of this list for the suggestion. But let's just get it out of the way right now. Wonder Woman is probably the first person that I would choose to fight for me if I had to pick. She is a warrior bound, probably the most useful combatant the Justice League has. But when Wonder Woman was part of the Justice Society back in the 40s, she was arguably the most powerful hero on the team, and yet the JSA put her in the position of secretary. When the JSA introduced Wonder Woman as their first female member in All-Star Comics number 8 from 1941, Diana was originally an honorary member and was made secretary of the team. Future issues of All-Star Comics would even start with a roll call that emphasized the fact that Wonder Woman was just the secretary to the Justice Society of America. She was forced to be held back on multiple missions and wasn't given a serious role on the team for years. Meanwhile, she could probably completely wreck every single member of the team in a one-on-one fight. I think we are all glad that she finally got the respect she deserved eventually. Now, some superheroes aren't strictly superheroes. Some are a little more ambiguous with the morality, and one of those characters would have to be the Asgardian god of mischief, Loki. While Loki is more than capable in many different ways, being an amazingly capable magician and tactician who is known to be more than proficient with a blade from time to time, problem is, more than half the time, they aren't really doing any fighting at all. Loki is more prone to finding any way possible to sidestep actually fighting someone, and then when they do fight someone, they almost never play fair, and more often than not, it will not be some kind of hand-to-hand shot-for-shot fight. Loki plays to their strengths, and those strengths are deception, trickery, and staying out of the line of fire and letting other people take the hits, assuming that they don't just betray you completely. And yet, Loki, especially recently, is someone who is so powerful that they can change literal events in time. But moving on from Loki, Mr. Immortal is the leader and founder of the Great Lakes Avengers, and he is one of the only members of a superior form of human evolution known as Homo Supreme. As a more evolved form of humans than even the mutants, you'd expect Craig Hollis to have an amazing power, and he does. Craig here literally cannot bite the dust no matter what happens. Craig just gets better and walks it off. Mr. Immortal has been stated to be destined to be the last living being in the universe, merging with the sentience of the cosmos, surviving beyond the end of time, and moving on into the next iteration of everything. That's awesome. Unfortunately, it means diddly squat when he gets into a fight. Craig's only real strength when it comes to fighting is being used as a human shield. And the worst part is that when he eventually revives and comes back to the world of the living, he almost always just has a big old temper tantrum that only particular characters can calm down. Being an immortal character, he has experience and obviously some leadership ability, but when it comes to a fight, do not count on him for anything but taking one for the team. Now moving on, the character of Jin Genie, who appeared as a member of the Ecstatics team, was a mutant, and usually that's already a few points in the power department, which is especially true here as Becca Parker had the power to generate seismic vibrations, which is an awesomely powerful ability, until you learn that the level of her power is directly proportionate to how much liquid courage she has consumed. As you can imagine, being intoxicated in order to use your superpowers can be rather interesting. It seems like one of the things that you should add to the list of things you shouldn't do while under the influence. Don't drive, don't operate heavy machinery, don't use your superpowers to cause earthquakes, that normal kind of thing. Unfortunately, we do not get to see her use her powers much, or get an explanation for why her power is the way it is, because Jin Genie is stricken with unliving in the same comic book that she's introduced, X-Force number 116 in July of 2001. But while some people can create earthquakes while under the influence, other people are just really good at making loud noises. And for ham radio operator Jerry Carstairs, it's the latter. Frustrated by the apparent inaction of America against crime time, Jerry here developed a costume with a built-in speaker system loud enough to shock and deafen anyone crossing his path, and he stepped into the superhero world as the Thunderer. The problem here is that while his power system was strong enough to actually crumble buildings, he didn't really have the kind of control that one might need to actually keep innocent people out of harm's way. So sure, his power did actually defeat villains like a deformed dwarf who had a vendetta against good-looking people and used Morse code through the radio to end people's lives. I don't even understand that, but wait! No, Jerry's powers were actually used to end the dwarves' operations. Instead, it was actually an accidental house fire that defeated the bad guy in that story. Jerry would go on to rebrand as the Black Avenger, and he fought against the Axis powers until Red Skull wiped him out alongside a number of heroes using the Cosmic Cube. But switching over to DC for this next point, when an alien race has all their food infected by microbes, instead of going extinct as you might expect, they actually evolved to be able to eat unlimited amounts of any form of matter to survive instead. Yes, welcome to Planet Bismol, home to Legion of Superheroes member Tenzil Kem, better known as Matter Eater Lad. In addition to being able to eat unlimited amounts of pretty much anything, Matter Eater Lad can also analyze matter's contents, determine if it contains poisons, metabolize his food quickly in order to obtain super speed, and use his special Bismolian digestive enzyme in order to make tough materials like steel easier to consume. Now, look, I'm not casting any doubt on how useful that power can and has been. Matter Eater Lad has used his powers to break his team out of prison cells and eat entire asteroids that were set to destroy civilizations. But Bismolians are barred from eating other people, or they get their teeth removed. So any fighting ability this guy has is not on par with his eating ability, and it's not on par with other members of the Legion of Superheroes, even a tiny little bit. But going back to Marvel, some members of Marvel's mutant population are pretty unique, and Maggot is definitely among them. Instead of having a digestive system, the mutant known as Maggot's body is essentially the home of two pretty big blue maggot-like creatures who are able to leave his body, eat anything they want, then crawl back into his guts, nourishing him and helping him grow in size, stamina, and speed. First of all, that's absolutely disgusting. But secondly, this presents a pretty big problem. That being that unless he has pre-gamed his fight, Maggot will need to hang back and find something for his maggots to consume to give him enough power to actually enter the fight. And then on top of everything, the slugs need to enter through his stomach in a very meticulous, precise manner to even be properly effective. And if they are separated from Maggot long enough, he literally will perish. His powers are very, very dependent on who is writing him and who he is fighting, as a smart enough villain will be able to take advantage of his massive weakness with a quickness. I guess on the plus side though, Maggot does have another power, being able to see things from the recent past or the immediate future, but there are plenty of other characters that can do the same thing and do it even better. Coming into our third from last spot today, listen. For a guy named Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards is pretty damn useless when it comes to a fight. You know it, I know it, we all know it. Reed here is on a team with a guy who can burn as hot as the sun, a rock monster who can trade punches with the Incredible Hulk, and a woman who can turn invisible and control invisible, near impenetrable force fields, which she has used to not only defend her and others, but even destroy people's brains. What Reed lacks in fighting ability is made up for by his teammates, leaving him to use his absolutely fantastic mind to lead his team and save the day by tackling the side of the conflict that has the least amount of physical conflict as possible. He can use his powers offensively, obviously, and has on multiple occasions, but we all know it's not where his true strength lies. And I think the alternate reality version of this character, known as the Maker, is a perfect example of this, as even as a villain, the Maker uses deception, trickery, carefully thought out plans, and much more capable villains to get his work done. And second from last today, when Hank Pym, the original Ant-Man, was originally part of the Avengers, he did not enjoy fighting at all. Hank, a genius scientist, was surrounded by physically powerful, confident, and self-assured men and women who were much more capable and impressive than he was. And he wanted to impress his girlfriend, Janet Van Dyne, who arguably also became much more powerful than him. So, Hank used his knowledge over Pym particles to grant himself the ability to shrink, grow, and control insects with his powers. While those abilities are all incredibly useful, it doesn't mean he he's actually good at fighting. When you are small enough that your opponent can't see you, or big enough that your opponent just can't realistically face you, it doesn't make you a good fighter, it just gives you an extreme advantage. And it's been proven time and time again that even when he's big or small, Hank Pym can still be brought back to reality by a capable enough villain or even a fellow hero. And he's also not really that great of a guy to begin with. His biggest claims to fame are how smart he is, but not really, because he created Ultron, and being horrible to his wife. But finally, coming in at our top spot today is a Green Lantern. But while the Green Lanterns as a whole are incredibly powerful characters, with their rings being one of the most powerful devices in the universe, the Green Lantern known as Gnort, or Nort if you want to call him that, is just not up to snuff. Gnort got his ring as a fluke and eventually came to Earth to join up with the Justice League International, and he basically became their pet and the butt of like 90% of their jokes. But unlike actual superhero pets, Gnort was not an animal. He is an alien. He's also not cute at all, and he was probably the most annoying of anyone on that team. Kind of like a chihuahua. What is even the point of those dogs? I don't get it. Gnort was literally so disliked that Maxwell Lord created a whole new team, Justice League Antarctica, and Gnort was the only member completely unaware that it was all just a ruse to get him to go away. You know how bad you have to be as a Green Lantern that people will come up with ridiculous ways to get rid of you? Even Guy Gardner was more effective, and everyone hates him. I kind of almost feel bad for Nort. Almost. Not really. But that's the list. Thank you guys so much for watching today on Top 10 Nerd. I'm your host, Adam Andrews. I will catch you all on the flippity flop, but until then, stay safe and peace the heck out, you nerds.